Hey everybody, this is James. I want to talk to you a little bit about the law firm Goldberg Jones. And I sigh when I mention the name because they're one of two law firms that advertise as divorce for men or divorce for fathers advocates of some sort. But the truth be told, that moniker is just a slogan just to get men in, desperate men who know the system's anti-father, or men who've dealt with attorneys who are who just aren't fighting for fathers because it's too hard or it's too much of a pain in the butt or they don't care. So they know they got a revolving door there. And if you're looking at this video on YouTube, you can go to the link below and get on my website. If you're on my website already, there's information below where I talk about one of their own attorneys, Thomas Alexu. He told me personally, he doesn't work there anymore, he told me personally that Goldberg and Jones laughs. Now, really they're laughing at you. They're laughing at you for buying it, for buying the con and the scam that they're divorced for men attorneys. And if you've already ran through Goldberg and Jones, you already know. If you're thinking about going to them or you stumbled across this, I might have saved you in the nick of time, because 99% of attorneys out there aren't going to fight for fathers. The system's anti-father. These attorneys come out of law school and they do whatever the lawyers teach them to do. You know, don't fight too hard for a man. It's a biased court system. You look bad. Don't bash the mom or say anything bad about her, even if she's on crack or drugs or beating the kids. It's just crazy, the lack of effort. Even though under the rules of professional conduct, an attorney is supposed to diligently represent you, and they're supposed to communicate with you on how to accomplish your goal. These attorneys don't even try, and they just... I'll mention this real quick. These attorneys, they tell you, well, as a father you can't get custody unless you really prove she's unfit. The courts aren't going to do that. They never do that. So they tell you that this is always the same result in every case, as if every case is a cookie cutter, as if every one of you is a cookie cutter dad, or, you know, even the lawyers who screw moms over, because that happens too. They think your case is a cookie cutter case and it's the same old, same old. Well, here's the problem. The lawyers never go in there and try and fight for those things. So there's always the same result. If the lawyers got some kind of sense, especially the male lawyers, if they got some sense of masculinity, and they got out of their cowardly, effeminate, soft, wimpy, passive, scared to death mentality, and manned up and went in there and just fought like an attorney's supposed to fight, or if the attorneys representing men fought as hard as the women's attorneys do, because they'll crucify a guy in court. They're vicious. If they fought that hard, then maybe the results would start changing. But they don't want to do that. They're going to be in front of the judge next week, and they're afraid the judge won't like them next week because they're worried about their own little thin-skinned little feelings. So this is the same scenario at Goldberg and Jones. They're the same type of attorneys. There's nothing different. They just slap this label on top of what they do, and they got you and the rest of the public bamboozled in thinking that they're father-friendly attorneys. And they do the same thing that everybody else does. Now, if you're on my website down below, you'll see a video from a local DJ, BJ Shea, where he's pumping up Goldberg and Jones. You'll see that I point out how KJR Sports Radio 950 AM, they advertise Goldberg and Jones on there. Why? Because there's a bunch of guys listening to sports radio, and that's a target audience. So these people advertise and hype up Goldberg and Jones, and BJ Shea really does it. He tells everybody, hey, Goldberg and Jones is where to go, they love fathers and this and that, and he has no idea what they actually do and how they actually operate. He just gets good advertising money from them. So, and I've listened to BJ Shea here and there, and he pretends to be some kind of male advocate or men's issues advocate, and he's selling men out and telling them, go down here to Goldberg and Jones, and he's sending them off to the slaughterhouse, the financial slaughterhouse, because they charge just as much or more than the average. Now, I'll tell you my experience with Goldberg and Jones and how I know this stuff for a fact. I called Goldberg and Jones when I first got dragged into court. You know, the mother tried to do one of her first of 8 bogus attempts at a restraining order against me. I was freaking out, desperate, looking for some help. And the first law firm I called was Goldberg and Jones because of the advertisement, Divorce for Men. This was back in 2001. So I call them, and a female attorney answers, and I talk to her for a second on the phone, and she says, I said, I want to try and get equal custody of my kid. And she says, well, you'll never get that. You'll get every other weekend. I said, wait a minute. I work at night, so I'm available during the day to be my daughter's daycare, and the mother lives 3 blocks away. I could walk to her house. She's right around the corner. So there's this extra super convenience. If my daughter's mom is leaving her at daycare, and I'm available to be around my child, why would the court not want the biological parent to be around the child? The lady said, you'll still probably get every other weekend, and we need $5,000 up front. So I took the phone and hung it up. That's the type of mentality at Goldberg and Jones. She told me I'd get every other weekend. I went to court by myself, and my first visitation order was 5 days a week. I got to see the child 4 hours every day, during the day while the mother was at work, and 8 hours on Saturday when she was an infant. And eventually, 7 months later, or about 5 months later, I got full custody. And Goldberg and Jones said they weren't even going to try for anything more than every other weekend. If I would have went for them, I would be screwed now. I'd be a visitor in my child's life. And I didn't pay $5,000 to do it. And the attorneys are obligated under the rules of professional conduct to communicate with you about how to accomplish not their goals, your goals. Just Google rules of professional conduct. Diligence, communication. In most states it's the same number because there's a federal rule for attorneys, and then each state adopts that. So if you look up rules of professional conduct 1.4 or 1.1, they're supposed to diligently represent you and communicate with you about how to accomplish your goals. This lady blew me off and didn't even attempt to communicate with me about my goals. She's like, oh, you'll lose. So they say you'll get every other weekend because they're not going to try for anything more. And most of you who, if you've already been in court, you know, and you see it over and over from your own experience or seeing other cases while you're sitting there waiting, they hand out every other weekend orders like water. That's the status quo. So why would you pay Goldberg and Jones $5,000 to go in there and get you what you could get by yourself without an attorney? That's the default presumption every other weekend to the dad. Unless there's actual abuse, you're really abusing your kid or committing domestic violence, or you're really a drug addict. Goldberg and Jones is going to get you the status quo, which you can get yourself. And, or also if you're being falsely accused too, you're not going to get the every other weekend. But the point is the status quo is every other weekend. And I'm going to have a whole nother video on how that whole thing is a crock. It was made up by some radical feminist psychologist that everybody believes. And that's a crock too. That's anti-children. So anybody who says there should be an every other weekend setup is anti-children and hates children, or is completely inhumane. So, Goldberg and Jones, don't use them. They're hustlers, crooks, and cons. They laugh at you if you come through the revolving door. Even if you don't retain them, they constantly have people coming in because there's such a huge market of fathers who are desperate and they're getting screwed. And if they say divorce for men, they're the only ones now, I got to give them credit for being brave enough to say divorce for men, because that's kind of a joke in the family law community too. But they probably don't care about that because they don't go to court that much. They don't fight. They want to go to mediation and settle everything out of court and scare you into believing, oh, if we go to trial, you're going to get screwed. So they never have to work. And so you give them $5,000, it's burned up in the first couple months, and they want $5,000 more, and then you realize, hey, what did you do? And then it's too late. Your money's all gone. Now, if you're in that situation and you think they owe you money back for horrible service or they committed malpractice, look to the left over here and look for the tab that says For Parents Free Stuff. And I have a pamphlet on how to deal with an attorney after they screw you over or if they're not fighting for you now. So, you know, if Goldberg and Jones is charge you thousands of dollars to go in and lose for you or get you practically nothing, you could have done that for free. You could have walked in the court and got what they got for free. Now, I have case after case that I've seen where somebody had Goldberg and Jones. One guy was falsely accused of abusing his kids and had a couple hours of visitation, and that was it. And Goldberg and Jones, they said, well, you're lucky that you should be happy you got that. And he said, but I didn't do it. And they said, well, since you're accused of it, you're kind of lucky that you got what you got. I mean, this is the advocacy. An attorney is also called an advocate. They advocate for you. But attorneys like this are advocating against you, like, don't try that. Don't try too hard. Stop. Don't go too far. The mom's a drug user, but if we say she's a drug user and we tell the truth, then we're going to be bashing her and it's going to look bad because even though it's the truth, you're blaspheming motherhood. All kinds of crazy stuff like that. They're a bunch of cowards. They don't want to fight because they're making millions without fighting. Why would they change? Why would any of these lawyers change? That's why I think nobody can fight for your case. You know, at least in my case, and what I've seen every person who represented themselves, who had an attorney and fired their attorney, nobody cared about their case and nobody cared about my case like I did. Goldberg and Jones didn't care. They're like, oh, you'll get every other weekend. I loved my daughter to death since the first day I saw her. I didn't want to be every other weekend visitor in my child's life, especially when I was available when the mother was at work and we lived 3 blocks away. And this lady, who probably, you know, a lot of these attorneys are sociopaths and so are the judges. They don't have any empathy for human feelings. She just blew me off like, oh, you'll get every other weekend. No big deal. Nobody cares about your case. Now, this isn't legal advice. I'm telling you the reality of the situation. I worked at 2 different law firms. Nobody cares about your case more than you do. Nobody has enough time to work on your case more than you do. Attorneys are juggling 20, 30 other people. I went for an interview at a law firm one time. This attorney said, I want to have at least 60 active cases at all times, where there's always something he can bill for. Law firm I used to work for, McKinley Irvin, the owner told us, if you're thinking about a client, you better bill them. You know, they wanted billable hours. Billable hours. Do something on the case so you can bill for it. Not what does the client need and how can we help them, and then we'll bill for it. It's think of ways to bill for them. Think of ways to bill them. Just bill them. Or, like a lot of attorneys do, they don't do anything because they're working from home or working at the office and nobody's looking. They'll just write up a bill. What are you going to do? Who's there to hold them accountable? You know, they could do whatever they want and get away with it. And the Bar Association definitely isn't going to do anything. I mean, people like Jonathan Burke, who works on the disciplinary council at the Bar Association, he loves the opposing attorney in my case, Don Farrell, who systematically abused, manipulated, psychologically abused, sexually harassed his own women clients over and over and over again. And Jonathan Burke says that's perfectly fine. We can't prove that he really did it, even though there's a malpractice suit against him that a woman won. So that's your Bar Association for you. So attorneys are going to bill for stuff they didn't do. Or like when I worked at a law firm, I would get tasks done quickly, and I looked across at the cubicle and there's an older guy working for another attorney, and he's going, it takes him twice as long to do some of the stuff that I did. That client's getting billed twice as much because that guy moves twice as slow, or I'm twice as fast as him. That's the kind of stuff that goes on at law firms, and it goes on in Goldberg and Jones. It's no different, and they slap divorce for men to get you in the door. If they don't retain you, they still got a couple $100 from you for that initial consultation, and then as soon as you walk out the door, here comes the next guy. And if they walk out the door, here comes the next guy. And then maybe they, I don't know, 1 out of 10, they retain and they give them the $5,000 retainer. And then here comes the revolving door in the downtime. If they didn't have that divorce for men thing, they would have downtime in between retaining clients. But now they got this extra income just flowing in, and they're laughing at you, according to attorney Thomas Alexu. They're laughing at you. That's our family court system for you in a nutshell, and Goldberg and Jones is no different. So Don't use Goldberg and Jones. And while I'm at it, and I got you here, divorcelawyersformen.com, don't use them. They're a little bit worse because they have at least one attorney who's abused women and almost killed his own child, and that's one of their father-friendly attorneys. Goldberg and Jones, I don't know if they have any pedophiles or sex offenders or child abusers there. They might, but I know for a fact Divorce Lawyers for Men has an attorney on their referral list or in their network. So don't use either one of them. You save yourself the hassle. If it was me, I've learned, I've won some and lost some. I've learned the whole hard way. So I know for a fact I'm better off. And if I was a warehouse worker who flunked out of college and I did it, then everybody out there who's smarter than me is way better off representing themselves, because nobody cares about your case. Nobody knows your case. I won some hearings because I knew my life. I didn't have to memorize it. The mom's attorney is juggling 20 other clients. He couldn't memorize everything in our case, and I caught him off guard with some facts. In my personal opinion, I would never hire an attorney. I hired an attorney for a short period of time when I was afraid to go to trial. But I realized I could do my own trials. Just like many people I've worked with who've done their own trials just fine. It's exhausting, it's a lot of work, but it's draining financially, and it's emotionally exhausting to have to give up $10,000 or $20,000 for somebody who won't fight for you at trial like you can do yourself. So, and there's an American Bar Association study from the late 90s that said the majority of people are satisfied when they represent themselves in court. So the American Bar Association agrees with that statement, and they're a bunch of lawyers, and lawyers want to take your money, and they don't want people representing themselves. I will say this also, is that there's a quote that goes around that says a fool, someone who represents themselves has a fool for a client, or something like that. So they're basically calling you a fool for representing yourself. They got that from a judge who told that to a lawyer who was representing himself. That lawyer was doing such a horrible job, the judge was bashing him. So the lawyers now throw that around to say, oh, you're stupid if you represent yourself. Well, if you have an attorney represent you for thousands of dollars and they don't do anything but the same old, and you could do it yourself, then what's the stupid part? Who's the dummy? And the fact that they say they use that quote incriminated a stupid attorney who didn't know what he was doing because he was an incompetent attorney. He was so bad that he was bad when he represented himself. So the judge was so unimpressed, the judge said, anybody who represents himself has a fool for a client, because of that poor performance of an attorney. And then these attorneys are so stupid, they don't even realize the quotes that they throw around like that and their mentality. They just have a presumptuous, prejudicial outlook on somebody representing themselves. But that's kind of like somebody who's went to a mechanic certification school or Voc Tech program, and they laugh at the kids who grew up working on cars that are working at auto shops. Well, if you learned on your own, your dad taught you, and you figured it out, what's the difference between you and somebody who read a book at a Voc Tech school and had somebody else train them? What's the difference? Nobody comes into this world learning everything and knowing everything. Everybody has to learn in some avenue. And now that we got the internet out there, everything is out there and available for everybody to access. It's not a secret at all. The court rules, the court forms, everything's online in most states. And then these attorneys are going to mock you for even thinking about attempting to do this. And I've seen attorney after attorney get their butt kicked in court. And I've kicked butt in open court. I've won some, I've lost some. Now my judge hates me on my case, so he rules against me because he's mad because I got him reversed in the Court of Appeals. Now, I'm not supposed to win one time. If a midget plays Michael Jordan one-on-one 100 times, the midget is supposed to lose 100 times. I'm a legal midget. I'm not supposed to win a single hearing, case, or anything. I've won in the Court of Appeals a couple times. I've won my own contempt motion the first time I tried. This is against 17-year and 50-year veteran attorneys. The current attorney, the most recent one, he brags about he kicks my butt one time or something. That's like Michael Jordan bragging about beating a midget. You're bigger, stronger, faster. You're supposed to do that. But when you lose, it's humiliating. and you shouldn't do that. So the fact that I've won and I got court orders proving that I've won, after Goldberg and Jones told me that they would lose if they tried, you know, I'm talking about the whole system. You know, I meant to focus on Goldberg and Jones, but you know, I can't help but talk about the entire system because they're just like everybody else. So the short of it is, stay away from Goldberg and Jones if you know what's good for you. I'd stay away from attorneys altogether, but they're a bunch of hustlers, crooks, and cons, according to their own ex-attorneys. So if you need any help in your situation, or information, or a referral from somebody who knows what they're talking about, feel free to give me a call, text me, call me, email me. Fastest way to get a hold of me is to text me. You can set up a phone appointment or an in-person appointment, or you can buy some products that I have on here. And the free stuff on the 4 Parents Free Stuff page, that saves you hundreds, maybe thousands of dollars, depending on what attorney you'll talk to. If you ask an attorney all those questions in those pamphlets and on that page, you'll be paying a lot of money, and it's free for you. In any case, don't use Goldberg and Jones, you'll regret it. And don't use divorce lawyers from in, you'll regret it.